Hello and welcome to Line Sniper Fight Night. I'm your host, Dave Milhouse. Today we're talking UFC 260, live from Las Vegas, Nevada at the Apex Center. I got Cody Saftic with me. We're going to go down every single fight all the way down this card, breaking it down for you, trying to find the value side of each play. We're going to start right now. How you doing, Cody?
Doing great, Dave. We're coming actually off a really profitable week last week, so things are coming together. Things are starting to shape up. You obviously killed 2 weeks ago with the Dan Ige pick. I mean, even if you were expecting a knockout, which I know you were, man, that was really fast. So we're finding our footing. We're finding our groove. The picks are getting good. We're making some money. We're having fun. The fights are good. And we got a nice little pay-per-view offering right here. So glad to be joined with you once again.
Yeah, it's really nice to be able to make some money while you're being entertained. I think that's what keeps us all coming back for more. This main fight here, it's going to be entertaining. Are we going to make some money on it? One of us might. I think we're going to be on opposite ends of the spectrum here. Personally, I think Nganu, as long as he has gas in the tank, rightfully should be a very small favorite. For as long as this guy has got the cardio, he's always going to be live to kill Stipe at any minute. And the second that goes away, Stipe should be a large favorite in my mind. And it's kind of the tale of two takes here. What kind of Francis Ngannou are we going to see? Is this guy going to have cardio? Well, since he lost that fight to Stipe a couple of years ago, he's really been working on his cardio. It might not be shown in the fight film here because he finishes every fight in like 30 seconds. But, if you go on YouTube and look it up, this guy's really, really working on his cardio. His fitness seems to be a priority nowadays. So that should get him a little bit more than one round of cardio, I would think. And improved takedown defense is really what the other thing is that prevents him from being world champion. So, yeah, I'm not expecting it to be like he's an elite wrestler now. I know there's all these people talking about Kamaru Usman in his corner, so now suddenly he's going to have Kamaru's takedown defense or something. It's not like that for me. It's just, look, Stipe has been, he's getting older. He's getting skinnier. In his last fight against Cormier, he looked like a light heavyweight. He did not look like a very big man. Scrawny, good cardio, great technique, moves around on the outside, bobs and weaves pretty good. But here we are again. Now we're in a small cage. The man's getting a bit older, and he's quite hittable. I mean, his last 3 fights against Cormier, he's getting hit. He's getting hit quite a bit, and I think Cormier won almost all the minutes in the first 2 fights, and was very competitive in the third fight, until it wasn't. And Cormier is a guy who could probably be a welterweight. He's got 72-inch reach. He's got the same body as Carl Winslow, and he gets it done. He's a pretty good fighter, but Nganu is a big heavyweight. He's got a lot more power than Daniel Cormier, and he's got an 83-inch reach. Stipe's 80-inch reach was a significant advantage against Cormier, and it still couldn't keep him out of the fire. So I do think Ngannou is going to hit this guy a few times, and it only really does take a few. In Ngannou's last 26 significant strikes, he's got 4 knockouts. So I'm not saying Ngannou is the value side, and I'm not even saying that's the pick here. What I am saying is, if you were to bet Francis Ngannou and then look for a live line on Stipe the second he looks like he's getting a little bit tired, I think you could get a better line. And if you don't get a better line, it's really not a big deal, because if Stipe is still alive and Ngannou is getting tired, he should be a huge favorite. So even if you're paying minus 200 or something around that point in the fight, I still think it's a good deal on Stipe. So the over 2.5 at plus 150, another good look if you like Stipe, in my opinion, because I don't think he's just going to go out there and finish Francis. So it'll probably have to get into the third round if Stipe is going to wear him out and win. I mean, it doesn't have to, but in all likelihood, I think that's more, the style that this is going to go. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. I don't really know which way to play it, but I'll definitely have my finger right on the trigger waiting for Francis to get tired, because if that happens, Stipe is an alley-oop. So how do you see this fight going, Cody? Am I a little bit crazy? I'm pretty sure you'll find some value on Stipe here. I feel like that's how the sharper side of the community looks. He's got the strength of schedule. He's been there. He's done that against everyone. He's got the technique. Raw power is hard to try to just equate for and say there's value because of power. I mean, that's kind of a wild card in the handicapping process usually. So do you like Stipe Miocic here at plus money?
Yeah, I am going to take Stipe Miocic, but I'm going to fully recognize that it's going to be a sweat for however long it lasts because, yeah, you've nailed all the points of Francis Ngannou. Not only is he a big heavyweight power puncher, he's the biggest heavyweight power puncher that we've seen in a very, very long time. It only needs one. If he touches you, you're in a lot of trouble. And with Stipe, I mean, he got knocked out by Stefan Struve once upon a time. He got knocked out by Daniel Cormier, who you mentioned is not really a heavyweight. But beyond that, it's like he gets hit lots in all of these fights. He got hit bad when he fought Junior Dos Santos, again, once upon a time. But in both prior, the rematch and the trilogy against Daniel Cormier, the rematch, he's lost the first 3 rounds and rallies back in the 4th. And in the trilogy match, again, there's some kind of competitive rounds in there. He is getting hit, but he takes it. He's nearly 39 years old now. He is slowing down ever so slightly. If Francis Ngannou comes and lines him up with that one big shot, he probably topples him over. One of the big arguments I've been seeing from a lot of the fans and pundits coming into this one is, well, if Stipe or if Francis made any improvements, even a small few improvements, those improvements will be enough to carry him here. And I think he did make a lot of improvements. Last time he fought Stipe Miocic, he was full-time in France, Paris, France, training at the MMA factory. Now he's full-time at Extreme Couture. I mean, he's working with a lot of big bodies, good wrestlers, former D1 champions, a lot of BJJ black belts. And I think he nailed all the points. I mean, he's been working on 2 things that were his kryptonite his last time out, which was his physical fitness, right, his cardio, and as well as his takedown defense. If he shores up both of those issues, I mean, he should be able to go out there and either make really quick work of Stipe Miocic or just batter him and then all of a sudden take all those assets off the table. But, I bet Stipe Miocic the last time around, he was the underdog, he was the value side, and really what it came down to was back class and experience, perseverance, so to speak. And I think that's the key between both these guys. Francis Ngannou has largely had his way with every opponent he's ever been in the ring with. I mean, prior to getting his fight with Stipe the first time, he knocked out Alistair Overeem, he knocked out Andrei Arlovsky, he knocked out Anthony Hamilton, he knocks out Boya. These are all good, very nice looking first round finishes. The fight with Stipe was the first time he got extended. It was the first time he had to go multiple rounds. And all of a sudden, you've seen that cardio was a problem. And beyond that, I mean, he just didn't have a plan B. The follow-up performance against Derek Lewis, he opts not to do anything because he's worried again about the cardio. He thinks, geez, you know what? If I get tired in this fight, I don't want that feeling to happen again. He's changed the mentality since then. And what he's gone on to do is score 4 really first-round knockouts, fast first-round knockouts. Knocks out Cain Velasquez in 20 seconds. He knocks out Yorizina Rosenstruck 20 seconds. Cain's like 40 seconds. Like, these fights are ending really quick. So, honestly, the last time he fought Stipe, he was 31 years old, prime of his life. Now he's fighting Stipe. He's nearing up on his 35th birthday. He's not exactly super young himself. And I go back to the perseverances. What's the better takeaway? Francis had taken no damage his last 4, knocked the guys out. We don't know anything from him. Stipe, meanwhile, has gotten beat up his last 3, but there's that extra gear. There's that he's losing rounds and there's no quit in him. It's the 3rd round, it's the 4th round, and he's out there, right, with better cardio, putting it on the line against an Olympian, a guy that's one of the greatest competitors in the sport, a guy that was the team captain of Team USA for the Olympics, and then comes on to become a Strikeforce heavyweight champion, a UFC light heavyweight champion, a UFC heavyweight champion. He's a 2-divisional GOAT. Like, Daniel Cormier is not an easy win for anybody, regardless of the fact that he's a small man for the division. He's just such a classy fighter that being able to dig deep and come through down 3 rounds, down 2 rounds, being able to come back, that all shows a lot about, the perseverance, the resiliency, and the will to win, the determination from Stipe Miocic. So I'm really hoping, because again, you've nailed this point as well, right? Francis is either going to flatline my boy in the first round, or we're going to see that backlash. We're going to see that tenacity come through on Stipe, and he's going to work his way back into it. So again, the last time I bet Stipe, that was the side for me. He's my Croatian brethren, my Slavic brethren. He's a 3rd-generation Croatian like myself. Neither of us speak the language, but we both identify with being from there. So, I mean, I've always backed him. And, because I hit such a good plus money tag on him last time, if he was to lose here, I would just look at it as, the ebbs and flow of the game. But, yeah, I think that the value side is on the underdog. And, I mean, let me put you on the spot here. Like, when was the last time you seen a reigning champion as the underdog against his number 1 challenger? Like, it just doesn't happen very often. So it's got to be looked at as the value side, considering you can get a guy this classy with this much. He's in the conversations for greatest heavyweight of all time, right? In my opinion, he's better than Fedor. He's better than Cain Velasquez. He knocked out Fabricio Verdum, right? So this is a guy that's been there, done that, done it all. He's a little old, yeah, but he's still coming off 2 nice wins over a top quality guy. Like, are we writing him off just yet? The last thing I want to sprinkle on there is that if Miocic wins this fight, he gets the John Jones fight, which is a way easier fight than this, presumably, like way less dangerous, but also just the payday. It's going to headline a pay-per-view. You're going to get a cut. You might get $3 per pay-per-view buy. We're going to sell 1 million pay-per-views. That's $3 million in your pocket. That's what you want here. So you don't come in here and you half-ass. You go out here and you get the victory. And I'm hoping that's what Stipe is able to do come Saturday.
All right. Let's kick it off here at the co-main event now. We got Tyron Woodley, Vicente Luque. I've got all kinds of hot takes on this one. I think there is so many mistakes in the lines with props and everything. So how about you tee us up here, and I'll wedge us onto the green.
Okay, so I'm the biggest Tyron Woodley hater that's probably ever walked the planet. When he was the UFC champion, I never thought he was that caliber. I never think he got to that level. He was an unlikable champion. Instead of fighting the #1 contender, he opted to fight guys like Damian Maia. He opted to try to fight guys like Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor, despite the fact that both of them are natural lightweights. He never wanted to push himself. Never wanted to fight the best guy. He just quietly allowed himself to get older and older and run his mouth. When he would fight guys, it wasn't overly impressive. But hey, it's who he is. I cashed huge on the Usman fight because for whatever reason, Kamaru Usman was somehow an underdog to him. Then they gave you dog money on the Gilbert Burns fight. Wow, a great cash the second time. Now, Colby Covington's rightfully so the favorite, but they only gave it was only 3-1 with easy money. Now we get this Vicente Luque fight, and it's the same thing. However, there are some problems with this Vicente Luque fight. So first and foremost is that Tyron Woodley, this is the first time in 6.5 years he's been only scheduled for a 3-round fight. So that's going to be super important for him because, again, he's like one of these guys like Francis in the Lewis fight. He just doesn't want to exert himself. He doesn't want to throw too many combinations. He doesn't want to get tired. There's a fear of getting tired. And because every fight he's been in is a championship fight or a headlining fight, he's got to fight for 5 rounds. And I think part of that is causing him to be too conservative. In a 3-round fight, he should be able to let his hands go. If he does let his hands go, well, we got a nice little problem for Vicente Luque because Vicente Luque gets hit universally way too much by everybody. Nico Price hit him 130 significant times. Brian Barberena dropped him and also landed 130 significant strikes. Mike Perry lost a split decision, arguably got robbed, walked this guy down and absolutely battered him pillar to post. We've seen this time and time again with Vicente Luque that he is really hittable. And being really hittable against Tyron Woodley is not a good recipe. Kamaru Usman got a cast iron chin. He's been wobbled, but he's never been knocked out. Colby Covington has a cast iron chin. Quite literally had to break it to get a stoppage victory over him. Gilbert Burns, not quite as cast iron, let's be real here, but I mean, that threat of the wrestling and that threat of the trying to take you down in the grappling, it all just kind of neutralizes Woodley. Woodley doesn't got to worry about that here, right? So now we've got an opponent that's more hittable, an opponent that you could theoretically hurt. He's been knocked out before. That all plays well, but it's also the wrestling. So Woodley's got this amazing wrestling. He never uses it because there's a fear of getting tired. Wrestling is the most taxing art by none. If you want to try to go chain wrestle a guy and grind on him, you really got to live the grind. And not that many guys can do it, especially not at the age of 39. So he's opted to not really wrestle much anymore. So ultimately, it's just really interesting that it's going to be 3 rounds for him. He'll be able to use his wrestling. He'll be able to use his striking. Tyron Woodley could theoretically come out here. He knows he's lost his last 3. He knows he's 39. He knows he's back up against the wall. They just cut Anthony Pettis. They just cut Junior Dos Santos. They just cut Alistair Overeem. My job's not safe. If he goes out there and fights with a little bit of fire, with a little bit of aggression, he does still have the skill set to make this an interesting fight. However, I'm just not a Team Woodley guy. I think that the volume will play out for Luque. And the most interesting thing here is that maybe you just go for those overs. I mean, Tyron Woodley's only been finished by Colby Covington in the last really long time. I guess you go back to the Nate Marquardt fight once upon a time, but he's got legendary durability. And even in the Colby Covington fight, it's a 5th-round stoppage with a rib injury. This is only 3, right? He probably takes Vicente Luque's best shots. If you're taking Luque, you probably take that Luque by decision to juice it up. But yeah, if he's got one foot out the door and he's got the TMZ job, he's got the broadcasting gig, and he's not fully motivated, then it's going to be another squash match type situation. So the official pick will be Luque. I want to be way more confident in it than I actually am.
All right. Well, all my sweet hot takes were pretty much in your presentation of this one. So I think the money line is off a bit. It's a little high. There's value on Woodley because he can use his wrestling. His problem is always volume, always. But if you go back and look at his last few fights, everyone he fought has a good wrestling game and good striking. You're not going to out-wrestle Usman. You're not going to out-wrestle Covington. But you can out-wrestle Vicente Luque. Now, an interesting thing here, I think, is that Luque is getting about plus 175 inside the distance and plus 160 by decision. So they're really splitting that up like almost a coin flip on how he gets it done, if he gets it done. And I completely disagree with that. I think Tyron Woodley is hard to put away, and I don't think Luque is that good of a finisher. So when I look at this, I see value on Luque by decision at plus 160. That should be closer to a pick'em. And I think this inside the distance should be well over plus 220. I also think there's value on Tyron Woodley's money line because he could grind out a decision and he has the power to get the knockout on a very hittable guy. But what I ultimately like here is the over 2.5 rounds. It's chilling at about a minus 153 right now. Between that and minus 160, pretty much anywhere you want to look. And yeah, I do think this fight goes over 2.5 rounds more than 60% of the time. Woodley's not getting finished anywhere near that clip. He doesn't have the volume to finish most people at that clip. And Luque, although hittable, is pretty durable. Yeah, I think this should be more like a minus 200 over 2.5. So that's really where I think, the most value is. But if you're on Team Woodley, yeah, don't be afraid. If you really think he's going to win that plus 220-ish you can find, that's probably the best line available. I think there's value there. And if you really like Luque by decision, plus 160, that's also too high. So how do I play this? Do I sprinkle a few things or just play that over 2.5 and hope Woodley's power doesn't show up? I think that's probably the way I go about it, but no play on that yet for me. Thomas Almeida, Sean O'Malley, this is one that's just like, I know the boys in the UFC tried to tailor a fight perfectly to get Sean back on track. So what do? They find a guy that walks forward and has never shot a takedown in his UFC career. 0% takedown accuracy in a small cage against a guy who wants to stay on the outside and pick his shots. I mean, they're doing O'Malley so many favors right now with this. At least Almeida's got a bit of a name, kind of. But, I mean, it's still not big-time competition for this guy. I think the line might be a little bit high, but O'Malley inside the distance around that minus 110. If I was personally going to take it, that would be the look I give. I just think he's fairly hittable. O'Malley will win a few exchanges, and there'll be sharp punches or kicks that are going to land, and that's going to leave him open for the finish. But yeah, I don't like this minus 300-ish line. We haven't seen him push hard enough. And Almeida's not going to stop coming at him. So although he wants Almeida to walk forward this whole time, and it plays into his game plan, it's still not that comfortable when you're talking minus 300. So if I had to pick a side, yeah, I'd be looking at O'Malley inside the distance, but it's a pretty easy pass for me. Do you see this going any different, or did the UFC just give this guy another winnable matchup to further his career?
They've given him a winnable matchup. They would certainly like for Sean O'Malley to go out there and get the victory. I mean, the guy's got a good persona. Whether you love him or you hate him, people tune in to see him. He sells his own merchandise, and it does astronomically well. I mean, this guy is a fan favorite. He's huge on social media because he just keeps at it. And he brings in a different demographic because he's really into video games and, cannabis culture and stuff like that, it's not your average sporting fan always that follows him. He's kind of got that sub-genre, the subculture that he brings towards it. So yeah, they'd like for this guy to win, but at 3-1, he's very untrustworthy because you got to factor in the Marlon Vera fight his last time out. He hurts his leg, right? He claims that he rolls his ankle. Marlon Vera claims that he seized up his calf off a calf kick. Regardless, it's like his leg becomes compromised. Once it becomes compromised, he can no longer fight. You look 3 fights back, he fights Andre Sukumatev. The exact same thing happens. He hurts his leg, it becomes paralyzed, and then it's the 3rd round by that point. So he just falls to the ground and holds on. If Andre Sukumatev had a modicum of ring IQ, he would have just stood up and he would have won the fight. So you can't really trust Sean O'Malley's legs. And then when you see them, they are really pencil thin. He stands upright. If a guy like Thomas Almeida goes out there with the low calf kick, even just those classic shoot to block kicks, go with the low kick, stun this guy, hurt this guy. O'Malley could be winning, but I mean, at any point the light could give out on him. So at minus 300, he seems like he's parlay material. He seems like he's one of the biggest favorites on the card. You should be super confident in him. And I think he's got the style to win, but there is that recency bias where it's like, you know what? I have seen this guy topple over in a fight that he was looking good in because I thought he looked really good against Marlon Vera until he hurt his leg. But I think the UFC knows what they're doing. And with Thomas Almeida, this is super key here, right? He got dropped in the Brad Pickett fight. He got dropped in the Cody Garbrandt fight and got knocked out. He got dropped twice in the Jimmy Rivera fight. He got dropped twice by Rob Font and got knocked out. He's been dropped 6 times in his UFC career, right? And his last time against Jonathan Martinez, it's a 3-year-long absence. He's coming off the shelf, really long, hiatus from the sport. And yeah, it just didn't look like there was much that improved from him. He largely moved forward. His footwork wasn't particularly good. He didn't move his head a ton. I mean, his low kicks were actually kind of weak in that fight. He didn't do a really good job of cutting off the cage. He just allowed Martinez to dance around him. And that becomes a problem here with Sean O'Malley because at 5'7", taking on 5'11", Sean O'Malley, he is the much bigger guy. He only has a 2-inch reach advantage, but he's just going to stay to the outside, fight that long man stance and intercept him coming forward. So last but not least, Sean O'Malley throws all of his strikes really straight, really linear, really right down the pipe. It's, the shortest distance from point A to point B. Point A is my fist, point B is your chin. What's the shortest trajectory there? And that's why he beats a lot of his opponents to the punch. Thomas Almeida has more of a hooking game. He'll come over here and he'll throw a lot of more looping strikes. And so when he fights Cody Garbrandt and Rob Font, the linear sharp strikes down the middle is what beats him both times. And I would kind of think that Sean O'Malley does the same thing. So I don't like the 3-1, which you're saying with the inside the distance, it's -110. The thing is that I'm willing to throw off the submission victory out of here. So what I'm going for is the Sean O'Malley by knockout, which is a plus money figure. So that's kind of how I'm falling into this one, is that I don't want to bet a 3-1 Sean O'Malley, but I wouldn't mind taking that Sean O'Malley by knockout at +150. Again, Sean O'Malley hasn't won a whole lot of these decisions. He mostly it's a kickboxing match. It's striker versus striker. He's either going to put you away or his leg's going to get injured, right? In this case, I'm hoping his leg doesn't get injured, which would allow him to put away Thomas Almeida.
All right, yeah, we're looking at that one the same. Jillian Robertson, Miranda Maverick. Interesting fight here. Jillian Robertson is a pretty experienced grappler. She's got a good amount of UFC experience for someone of her age, which is only a couple of years older than Miranda Maverick, who basically feels like a baby in the UFC. So these are two young girls, but, loads of experience already for Robertson. And what we see with her experience is very consistent. She's good on the ground. She's a good grappler. She's a horrible striker, and her wrestling probably below average even. She telegraphs her takedown shots. They're not so good. Her entries aren't so good. And when she's against a good grappler who's stronger than her, she's not really having that success. When she's against a good striker, she's not really having success. And it kind of leaves a small, pool of people that she would really just dominate. And when I look at this fight, you think, wow, Jillian Robertson is a dog to Miranda Maverick, who has one UFC fight. But I think that's very warranted here. Miranda Maverick, pretty decent wrestling. I don't want to call her great, but she has definitely a wrestling base. And I think her wrestling defense is probably better than Jillian's wrestling offense. So I do believe she'll be able to keep this on the feet more times than not when they get in the exchange of grappling. Second thing is she's pretty good Muay Thai. Okay, she mixes up her strikes okay. Distance control is okay. And she'll mix it up with even like a lead elbow following a jab. You don't see that too often, especially in the women's side of things here. That's more like elite level striking, So she's sprinkling in some fancy stuff, very effective stuff. And ultimately that got her the stoppage at the end of round 1 last time. Some beautiful lead elbows, destroyed Joe Jua's face. That was a pretty decent round of fighting. So I think she's much better than Jillian on the feet. And if she can just stuff enough takedowns, she should win this pretty easily. It's when it gets on the ground that it's going to get very interesting. So both girls have a clear path to victory. But I would say in order for Jillian to get it in her world, she's going to need a little bit of luck, and you don't want to rely on luck in MMA. So I think there's a fair amount of value on Miranda Maverick here. I think she probably lands twice as many strikes. If she doesn't get the finish, she should be well ahead on the scorecards. But it probably won't take a whole lot of these sharp combos to put Jillian down. So I think she's live for the finish too. Do you think Miranda Maverick's all hype and she's just going to get choked out by Jillian eventually? Or is this girl the real deal?
It's certainly possible, but I'm leaning towards real deal. I like what I see out of her. I mean, first of all, she starts her amateur career a month after her 18th birthday. So she's all about this sport. She sees it, she loves it, she starts training, and immediately she's taking fights. She goes 7-1 as an amateur, turns professional, and her pro career has been the same thing. She is green, but she's just so eager to get in there and learn and evolve and has that aggressive style. Her striking's come a long way and gotten a lot better. Takedown defense was a problem on the regional scene, but I mean, take example the Invicta one-night tournament where she joins a one-night tournament. This is a 21-year-old fighter, right? Who fights in one-night tournaments at that age? Fights 3 different opponents in one night, goes out there and defeats all of them, right? It's willing to push herself. It's willing to improve. Now, her last pro loss is Deanna Bennett, where takedown defense, again, was a problem, but this is 2 years ago. So you see her rematch Deanna Bennett in the finals of the Invicta tournament, and just from the 2 fights, it's like, oh man, Miranda Maverick's made a lot of improvements. She's eager. She's a good learner. She's a smart girl. Then she proceeds to go 5 rounds of 3 rounds hard, good good third round with Pro Gonzalez, who's a UFC veteran, and then makes that debut against Joshua. The Joshua fight was interesting because Joshua is not exactly high-level competition, and she got hit a lot by Joshua in that fight. But what I did take away from there is that she didn't care. She walked right through Joshua's best strikes time and time again, because it was almost this mentality of like, go ahead, hit me, because I'm going to hit you right back. And I have way more supreme confidence on my own power, my own ability to walk you down. And that mentality just kind of broke Joshua back. She splits her open. She cuts her. I didn't think it was a cut-worthy stoppage, but the doctor clearly did, and so they waved that one off. Coming into this fight with Jillian Robertson is going to look to get this fight to the ground. That is going to be a problem. Random Maverick has given up takedowns before, and against someone who's a BJJ black belt like Robertson, maybe she's going to have success when she does get the fight to the ground. But more often than not, I think Random Maverick stuffs a few takedowns, and when she does get taken down, is work her way back to her feet. And when she's standing, that's where she'll have a lot of success. Jillian Robertson, as much as she is a good wrestler and grappler, a good grinding type fighter, she doesn't deal well with pressure strikers, right? When she moves back off her back foot, she gets overwhelmed with strikes. She tends to just shell up. You've seen in the Macy Barber fight, and you also saw that the last time against Taylor Santos, where it just becomes desperation takedowns. If Miranda Maverick can back her up, hit her with those strikes, cause her to try to go for that reactionary shot, and could stuff that, it could be a short night or it could be a long night, but it would be a victorious night for Miranda Maverick. And the last thing I want to say here is just I want to go about, you got skill and you got drive and you got all these things, but it's like MMA is an X factor game. And I think with Miranda Maverick, she's a very smart girl, but she's already actually graduated from the University Jury in Springfield, Missouri. She's got a major in psychology and sociology, but she's also currently enrolled at Old Dominion where she's studying industrial psychology. So like, this is not just like a one-dimensional, I fight. I know a lot of people would be like, geez, do you want someone who's splitting their time doing studying as well? Like they're not fully committed. But again, she's 23. Like at 23, you can work. When I was 23, man, there's 24 hours in a day. I could work for 20 of them, sleep for 4, no problem. The older you get, you can't quite do that anymore. But this girl's eager. This girl's eager to do it all. So the fight gets booked. I got Maverick. People like Maverick. And Jillian Robertson pulls out due to COVID. So now that it's got rebooked a month later, who does that favor? Another month from Miranda Maverick, great, because time is what she's got an abundance of. She's only getting better, an extra month, no problem. And she wasn't the one with COVID, right? She wasn't the one that had to self-quarantine for 14 days in a hotel room all by herself. Robinson had to do all that. So the pick's going to be Miranda Maverick. If I had to sprinkle out one more fact there is that Jillian Robertson left American Top Team 2 fights ago, and she actually noticeably does not look as good since leaving there and kind of doing her own thing in Carolina and Wisconsin, just kind of moving around generally. So I'm gonna take Maverick. I like your angle though, because Maverick inside the distance is a good plus money side of things. People often think with women's MMA, it's just probably going to go decision unless there's a submission. Maverick, if she wins, is not going to be a submission. But again, it's that pressure striking game. It's the backing this girl up, biting down your gum shield, and just throwing, being aggressive. That's going to yield her a TKO result if she chooses to do it. And I think she's live for that. So even though I'm just going to take the Maverick money line, I'm not hating your angle here too.
Yeah, I'm just taking the money line myself. No need to make it more complicated than it has to be, but she's certainly live for it. Very good striking. Jill will get herself in trouble backing up, just like you said. Very live for any angle, but as long as you're ahead, it's good enough for me. Jamie Malarkey, comma worthy. How can I put this? I hate this fight. Both guys have a clear path to victory and major holes in their game. Worthy, this guy doesn't move his feet, period, man. He's like a statue. He's got good power, not such great takedown defense. On the other side, Malarkey, pretty horrible striking, but this guy averages 4 takedowns every 15 minutes. He's probably going to chain together a few attempts and get this to the ground, and it's going to get hairy. So I don't like it. I don't even want to try to make a case. I mean, like, either guy could win this fight. It just depends who's going to have success against the other guy's holes. And, somebody's definitely going to dominate. I don't think it'll just be close. There's big holes, and once the hole gets filled, it's going to be like an avalanche. So no interest from me, but do you have a side in this Malarkey-Worthy fight?
No, honestly, it could go either way. I think you make a pretty solid case for either side. I think I would be ever so slightly leaning Jamie Malarkey just because he's the plus money side of things. And I think this very much is a dogger pass. When you look at Common Worthy, he's got 7 pro losses, right? All 7 of them inside the distance. One of them by submission, his pro debut. And then he got knocked out 6 times. When you look at those 6 knockout losses, oftentimes they're like a minute into the fight, a minute and a half into the fight. He's even got knocked out. Oh, he made to the second round, and Billy Q takes him out 10 seconds into the second round. Like, these knockouts happen very quick for him. I think he's a guy that is damaged. He's nearly 35 years old now. And you've seen that in the last fight against Otman Nazarbayev, where Otman's a little bit faster, has big power, beats him to the punch, and knocks him out. So coming back to the UFC, him against any opponent with some decent striking, he's going to be there's going to be that problem that he might get clipped, he might get knocked out. But therein lies the problem with Jamie Malarkey, is that he's just not really the striker. He was billed coming into his UFC debut against Brad Riddell as a bit of a technical boxer, but you saw in the Riddell fight where it's like he just got beat pillar to post, the striking wasn't quite there. And then his last fight against Faraz, same thing. It's just like he got massively beat up whenever the fight was standing, which is no problem, right? Because when you look at Faraz Zayam, he's an excellent Muay Thai striker. He's a good striker. But I mean, again, that's not his element. So with Colin Worthy, he's got absolute dynamite in his hands. If he touches you, there's a good chance that you're going to topple over. If he touches Jamie Malarkey, we have seen Malarkey knocked down in the regional scene. Chin checks out pretty good as far as his UFC run goes, but you're still playing with fire. He's got to get to that wrestling. He's got to get to that wrestling early. He's got to get to that wrestling often. But my problem there is that Colin Worthy is a black belt. Colin Worthy is also a guy that generally keeps his hands relatively low, and his takedown defense isn't terrible. If he takes Colin Worthy down and he doesn't put him away, you really got to hope to tire this guy out over the course of 15 minutes. And in the Zayam fight, I thought he won. I thought he won. He takes 5 takedowns. He got outstruck, sure, but he controlled the pace. His cardio looked pretty good. Physically, he was in great shape. And ultimately, the judges didn't give it to him. So with judges, they don't always reward the takedown, right? They don't always reward control. A lot of the time, they go for damage. And Malarkey's the one that's usually getting beat up. Him versus Brad Riddell was fight of the night, right? And he lost 2 30-26s on the scorecards. So, how is a fight of the night that one-sided? But it was just he showed heart, right? And the Zayam fight, it's he showed the desire to keep pushing through, but got screwed on the card. Are we betting on him just on some drive and hoping that 2 of the 3 judges are looking at control and takedowns? It would be a hard sell, right? But the reason why I would ever so slightly give him the nod in a close fight, yeah, he's the plus money side. But with Colin Worthy, I mean, he seems kind of bang or bust with his own power. I mean, knocked out Devontae Smith in the first round. But the Luis Pena fight, he gave up 3 takedowns. In that second round, he looked out of it. He gives up the takedowns. He gives up his back. He gets controlled. In the third round, it's 1-1. It's in the third. And Luis Pena, very inexplicably, just fights a terrible game plan. In fact, Pena fought a pretty bad game plan that whole fight. The only time he had success is when he shot those takedowns. So Malarkey would be live to go out there and shoot those takedowns. Malarkey also spent this entire camp with Alexander Volkanovski, who was supposed to be the co-main event before the fight got canceled due to COVID. And he's also been doing this full camp with Shane Young, who's also on the card. So no doubt he's physically going to be ready. As long as this fight does actually happen and there isn't any COVID, because there's been rumors that this fight already got canceled once and they put it back on the card because it was a false positive for Jamie Malarkey. But if he shows up in shape. He's had a good camp. He's just got to get that wrestling going. It's not enough for me to bet it comfortably, but I would think that the dog or pass, if you're looking for an underdog, this is a slight plus 110, but he's got a chance at least.
Fair enough. Yeah, there's nothing I have to bet on, but there's not a whole lot of underdogs that I'm too interested in on this card. So if you want some dog money, Jamie Malarkey might be one of the guys you have to just throw in the mix. Here we got a fight that was added yesterday. Alonzo Menafield, Fabio Cherant. Again, I don't have much to say here. Fabio is making his UFC debut. Not a lot of good competition on his resume. Obviously no UFC stats, so we have no numbers on it. Menafield, on the other hand, cardio's been an issue for him. So there's always that clear path to victory that when he gets tired, you can take over. And I know Fabio's in pretty good shape from watching his fights. So again, it makes it not that interesting. I think Alonzo Menafield's the better fighter, more well-rounded, more power. But the cardio, if it's not there, that can be a big problem. I mean, cardio is the ultimate martial art. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter what you're good at because you're not going to be good at it for long. So we're seeing this around a minus 285. I don't really know how to judge that. Is there value on it? Is there not? I just don't think there's enough data to really support either way. So it's a clear pass for me. But if we do see Menafield getting a little bit tired, that live line might start to look pretty enticing. I mean, if you're going to be plus 220-ish now after you lose a round, you might be plus 350, 400. That could be interesting. So always keep the live line open, guys. There's a lot of opportunity there. Sometimes guys get clipped and the odds don't even change. Sometimes there's some gifts. And if Menafield's going to gas, I think this is one of those spots where there's a potential gift waiting for us. But otherwise, it's an easy pass for me. Do you have any opinion on this, or should we just move on to the next fight?
Yeah, you know what? This one really comes down to the weigh-ins. You're going to want to watch the weigh-ins. Fabio Charant just took the fight yesterday, so we know he's coming on short notice. But here's the interesting fact with him. So he actually fought 5 weeks ago against Myron Dennis, and it was a 5-round fight in LFA. So he went 5 rounds 5 weeks ago. Cardio should be on point. But the 2 prior fights to that, right? So he fights Yuji. This is in November of 2020, so it's not that long ago. He missed his weight. He came in at 209. The fight before that against Eric Murray Jr., he came in at 213 pounds for a scheduled 205-pound fight. His opponent, Eric Murray, wasn't even noticed. He came in at 203. He was actually giving up 10 pounds to him. So Fabio Charant had trouble cutting weight, and now he's taking this fight on very short notice at 205. I would say that he might try to kill himself to make the weight, and that would compromise him, and then you're going to have a problem. The other thing is, who in this world wants to do anything for 25 minutes and then jump right back into camp? Like, you fought a man for 25 minutes. He's going to be sore. You don't just get right back to the gym. So I would say he's going to be definitely compromised a little bit. You would think Alonzo Menefield has a shot. The other thing with Fabio Charant is that he's very much a grappler. He shows 0 knockout victories. He's never knocked out a man in MMA. He likes to take these guys down. He likes to grapple them. So the problem there with Alonzo Menefield is that he is built like a brick shit house. He is difficult to take down. Devin Clark really had to lean on this guy hard for 12 minutes before being able to complete a takedown. He does got decent hips on him. So Fabio Charant has a limited gas tank. He's a little bit compromised, and he isn't able to get this fight to the ground. Menefield should have his spots that he should go out there and land. But the way he looked against Avis St. Preux, mind you, top 15 guy, former 12 challenger, we'll give him a slight pass there. But he looked like Nganu versus Derek Lewis. He looked like he came off his first career loss, and he was just like, I don't want to get tired. I don't want to let my hands go. I don't want to exert myself. I don't want to do anything. And he looked really bad. Menefield's 34 years old. He's not getting any younger. He's coming off 2 losses. He looked not very good in either of those fights. There's a lot to want to fade him here. If he was taking on William Knight still, we might have a nice little fade spot. But Fabio Charant on this short of notice, I just don't think you can get behind him. And like side of that, the line on the other side is just it's not quite good enough. Menefield's already let us down a few times. You don't really want to back him to the tune of a 3-1 favorite, right? So I would say pass. I would like to say an over 1.5, but again, Menefield has 9 career victories, 8 of them in the first round, one of them 20 seconds into the second round. Why would you want to hit an under or an over on a fight like that, right? So the prop doesn't look great. The fight doesn't look great from a money line standpoint. As fun as this fight could be very fun, I don't know that you want to involve too much money on it.
It could be fun, and it also could be the most boring fight of the night. It really just depends if Menefield wants to let his hands go, it seems, from entertaining to horrible to watch, and just like that, in the snap of a finger. So I have no idea what to expect other than the cardio to be a little bit better for Fabio. Jared Guden, Abubakar, Nurmagomedov. That's probably not pronounced very well. This is another fight I'm not so confident on. I think the real problem is that I do think Nurmagomedov here is probably the better fighter, but I do think you pay the tax on his last name. Anyone with the same last name as Khabib, it's another 20, 30, 40 cents added to the money line. And, that doesn't make for a plus EV bet. Jared Gooden, he's okay. He's got an okay jab. If he can keep it standing, he's very live. Can he, though? I don't really know. Again, this is a lower level UFC type fight with not a whole lot of data to go off of. So all we can do is watch the film, and I'm not too impressed with either guy. So again, not really looking to bet this one. I would pick the favorite, but again, I think it's probably inflated. So the value is probably on Gooden. Maybe a good spot to back a dog. Cody, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, so this is a spot that I could really be kicking myself come Sunday morning, where I fully recognize that Jared Gooden's a live underdog, but I'm going to take Abubakar Nurmagomedov. We got to go with the wrestling, man. The last name aside, it's the style. It's the style to go out there. You got that Dagestani, wrist lock. You're going to go for takedowns. What I like about Abubakar is that he mixes up his wrestling really well. He'll shoot a single leg. He'll shoot a double leg. He'll go for an inside trip, outside trip. He'll try to suplex if you can. He'll take the back. There's a lot of variety to his grappling, and his cardio, similar to his cousin Khabib, is endless, similar to Islam Makhachev, is endless. These guys will just keep grinding on you over and over again, time and time again. And that's a very effective style. It's also the kind of style that you want to bet money on, because when you're watching the fight from an entertainment perspective. You want to see first round knockouts. You want to see the guys put their hands down, their chins up in the air, and just swing. When you bet these fights from a gambling perspective, it doesn't matter how boring it is. I could not care less. It's really entertaining watching me neutralize you as long as I'm going to win. That's what I'm hoping to see out of Abubakar. Now, with Nurmagomedov, like, he doesn't have a great chin. I will admit that. So he's been knocked out by Pavel Kush in PFL. He got knocked out by Magomed Mustafayev in the Russian Regional before coming over to the UFC. And that David Zawada fight, he gets caught in a triangle choke first round after he completes the takedown. So part of me is a little bit worried that his game's not super refined. He's 31 years old. He very clearly isn't his cousin Khabib. He very clearly isn't any of these elite Russian type fighters. He's just got that similar style. And I think that similar style should be enough to beat Jared Gooden. So I guess the one issue that I have is that sometimes he'll, instead of going right to the wrestling, sometimes he lets his hands go a little bit too much. He gets a little too comfortable in the stand-up department. If he stands up with Jared Gooden a little bit too long, he runs that risk that he might give up, you know, that one big shot to Gooden. Gooden turns this around. And with Abubakar, you know, when he gets hit, he'll freeze up. He'll take a moment where he gets hit that he freezes. It's not like he gets hit and it automatically shoots him into a reactionary takedown. There's like a gap there where it's like he becomes a prone sitting target. And I think that Jared Gooden could go out there and capitalize. But the UFC, again, they know what they're doing. Khabib's officially retired. We got a couple of Nurmagomedovs on the roster. We can try to build these guys up a little bit. And we're going to give him a guy that's 0-1 in the UFC in Jared Gooden. Jared Gooden also had the displeasure of making his debut against Alan Jouban. Like, first of all, what a tough fight. But second of all, the UFC knew what they were doing. Jouban's a broadcaster for the promotion. He's a male model. He's a good-looking guy. He's done a lot of favors for them. They gave him he's an 11-fight UFC veteran, and they bring him Jared Gooden for him to fight as a UFC debut. Tough spot. They knew what they were doing. Abubakar, I would think it's very similar. And the rumors are that Khabib might be cornering him as well. All good stuff. I would think that he should be the favorite. The problem is the money line, man. Minus 250 is just too much. So we chase him by decision. You know, Gooden's only been finished one time. It was kind of a fluky situation versus a guy that was up a weight class. So if Abubakar wins, I think it's by decision. And that's where I would try to lay my money here. It's Nurmagomedov by unanimous decision.
All right, no problem with that. Bukakis, Oleg Zajac. This is the fight I might be looking forward to the most. It's got all the makings of a good, just striking matchup. Look, I think there's a little bit of value on Oleg Zajac. I went through this many times, rewatched some of the fights twice even to make sure I knew what I was seeing. This guy's really good until he's tired. And that's pretty much all there is to it. If we want to go through his stat line, this guy is landing 4.8 strikes per minute, 56% accuracy. He's only getting hit 2.9 times per minute. And he's got a 69% defense. So you're getting hit with 31, you're landing 56, plus 25% on the striking versus expected metric, which is among, you know, the tops of the UFC. On the flip side, Bukakis, he's landing 3.5 strikes per minute, getting hit with 5.7 strikes per minute, negative by over 2 strikes per minute. Striking accuracy 37%, well, his defense is only 42, so he's getting hit with 58, landing 37, minus 21% on the striking versus expected metric, which makes him, you know, a very below average UFC striker, where Oleg Zajac is well above average. Now, I said the cardio is the big key here, because as soon as he's tired, it's pretty much over. He's an undersized light heavyweight, and so when Oleg Zajac gets tired, guys are taking him down, or they're just able to take him down right away because his takedown defense is pretty piss poor at 35%. Here's the thing, though. Bukakis, 0% takedown accuracy. He's never landed a takedown. Will he be trying here? I would if I was him, but most guys don't change their styles too much. So I do expect Lord Michael Oleg Zajac to be ahead on the scorecards, and he's definitely live for a knockout. My concern is the cardio, but he's got to start being concerned with that because he's not going to have a career much longer if he doesn't get cardio. So I can only expect that he does improve it. It's just how much do I want to bet on that actually being improved? So there's a couple ways to do this. Oleg Zajac, this guy comes out like a bat out of hell. If he's not winning the first couple of minutes of this fight, I'll be shocked. So in that case, we're going to get a nice live line against him on Bukakis. So I'm pretty comfortable laying this about minus 160 price tag, but you got to have the computer open. You got to be ready to fire on the live line if guys start looking tired, because he's going to end up in a world of trouble. This is going to be way too much sweat if he's out of gas midway through this fight. Way too much. But if he's looking strong through the middle of the second, I find it very hard to believe that he loses this. The market's just simply low on Oleksiejczuk. If this guy has a gas tank, he should be minus 250 here. If he doesn't, maybe minus 135. So kind of in the middle. Gas is so important. Like I said, it might be it's definitely the most underrated martial art, because if you don't have the cardio, you can't implement anything. But yeah, I think we're getting a bit of a deal here because of his last two fights, and I like to buy low and sell high on guys, and this is a perfect buy low opportunity, I think, on Lord Michael Oleksiejczuk. Am I crazy? How do you see this fight going, Cody?
No, listen, I like Lord Michael. I mean, he's only 26 years old, so hopefully he did go up and shore up that cardio. But what the guy's got is a lot of power and excellent punch selection. He'll go high, and the second that you raise a high guard, he will just rip you to the body. He does the same thing with his body kicks. He'll switch up side. He can throw power from either side. He's very aggressive and great results. The Khalil Roundtree fight, he's a 3-1 underdog. That's his UFC debut. The John Vellante fight just cooks him to the body. A big, durable, tough guy, done. Antigulov fight, those uppercuts, again, it's all great punch selection. I want to talk about the next two, right? Because that's where, like you're saying, he's lost, and now everyone is kind of off of him. So the OSP fight, the first round against OSP, he looks like a world beater. It's a 10-8 round. I mean, Lord Michael is just dancing circles around this guy and hurting him. And in the second round, we finally get our first taste of he actually doesn't have cardio. The Jimmy Crute fight is the next time out. He gave up 8 takedowns in 3.5 minutes. Crazy, but also taxing on the body. And then he gives up the submission. So cardio's not great. Maybe takedown defense isn't great, even though he kept getting up. He's got some issues to his game. But this is a striker versus striker battle. And in the striker versus striker battle, he's going to definitely have his chance to go out there and knock out Modestas. Modestas, as well as he doesn't have a great chin. He'll go out there. He has a tall man defense. He stands upright. His head's way up. But you see Jimmy Crute, that's their common opponent here. Jimmy Crute goes out there. He didn't need to shoot 8 takedowns on Modestas. He spammed his right hand. He just spammed the right hand over and over, and eventually he hit him and he put him over. And it's just oh, damn. Because then you look at Modestas' other loss to John Redmond. John Redmond was 5-11, right? 5 wins, 11. He knocks out Modestas a minute 12 into the very first round. Just caught him with the right shot. Modestas' other pro loss is a heel hook. That's 18 seconds. So we're going to throw the narrative of the submission off here. That really is not applicable. What I'm saying is he has been knocked out twice. He's been knocked out twice relatively quick. He doesn't take the world's greatest shot. This is bad news if you're going to take on Lord Michael, who's going to go out there. He's going to rip you to the body. He's going to cause you to drop your hands, and then he's going to spark you upstairs. But the real move here, I think, because I think we're on the same page. We're going to take Michael. We're going to go for that Michael by knockout prop, try to juice things up. But the real move here is the under 2.5 rounds. It's minus 155. It covers you on both sides. Either Michael goes out there and he rips this guy and he puts Modestas down, or he gets tired. And if he gets tired, Modestas is going to take him out. But regardless, the under 2.5 is minus 155. It's better than the Michael Oleksiejczuk straight up, right? It's better than the money line, which is minus 160, and it would cover you both sides. I really don't think this fight's going the distance. I think that there's just a lot of power both ways. There's a lot of finishes both ways. And they're both young, they're both eager, they're both coming off losses. They've got something to prove. This will be a nice, fun, exciting fight that ain't going 2.5 rounds. So I think the best move is to take that under. But as far as a straight up pick, I agree with you. We're going to take Lord Michael. We're going to take him by knockout.
Okay, I love it. Now, before we wrap this up, do you have a favorite bet on the card for the people?
Yeah, so as far as one singular best bet of the night, it's tough, right? Well, which spot do you go in? We've already talked about the fact that the money line was off on the Vicente Luque fight. The money line is off in the Sean O'Malley fight. The money line is off in the Alonzo Menefield fight. The money line is off in the Abubakar Nurmagomedov fight. So it's are we going to start parlaying? Is that the move? Parlays become dangerous. So for me, I feel like the best bet that I would have on it, I feel like you're in agreement with this as well, would be Luque versus Woodley to go the distance. I think that if Woodley uses his wrestling, he's going to hold Luque down. He'll win a decision. If Luque is able to go out there and put some combinations together, Woodley's still going to take it, and we're going to get a decision. And for that, that'd be like a one singular best bet. But you guys can always catch me on Twitter at CJ Saftic. Feel free type of questions, follow-ups, anything that you might have on your mind. And then, come fight day, we are gonna try to put some parlays together as we always are, and we're gonna try to chase some of these round props as well. So if there was another bet that I liked, is the one we just talked about, Modestas versus Lord Michael, the under 2.5 minus 155. That's another spot that I like.
Okay, yeah, I like both of those myself. I would have to say Probably Miranda Maverick would be my most confident. So I'll leave that. That's my best bet. This is UFC Fight Night presented by Line Sniper, and we're out of here. Thanks for joining.